Hi everyone, I'm Yolanda and I've written the Early Words Guided Reading books. I'm a writer and I'm going to give you some tips to help you with your writing too. So tip number 1 is about your ideas. Now that's the most important part of your writing, is that you have something to write about. So think about what you want to write about, come up with your idea. It might be something that's happened to you, an experience you've had, such as going to the playground or your friend's house. Maybe it's an imaginary experience, such as meeting a unicorn or winning $1 million. When I get ideas, I often talk about them with someone else, so I suggest you do that. Talk about them with a friend or your teacher. Maybe draw a picture to flesh out your idea. So you don't get the idea and start writing. You get the idea and you kind of ponder it and think about it a little bit first. Tip number 2 is about the actual writing. So here's a few pointers. I always actually sit at a chair. When I write, I don't lie on the sofa or in a beanbag, because when you sit at a chair to write, you're pushing the blood up to your brain because you're sitting upright. So that is going to make you work more efficiently. The other thing I do is I always write with a pencil or a pen. I don't write on a keyboard on my computer. I can do that later, because when you write with a pencil or a pen, your brain works more deeply. So it's really good to write your very first draft by hand. The next pointer is about reading it out loud constantly. So don't wait to get to the end of the story and then read it out loud to see what it's like. As you're actually writing, you should be stopping every couple of sentences and rereading to make sure that everything sounds right and everything makes sense. So here's a story I'm writing on at the moment. It's called The New Neighbours. Here's a little bit I've written. Ashok saw a car come up the street. Mum, the new neighbours are here, he said. And so you can see, I'll read that out then. Okay, that sounds fine. I'll keep going. You don't want to write the whole thing and then reread it. You want to reread it as you write. Tip number 3 is when you finish writing the story, reread it out loud, the whole thing this time. And making it out loud, obviously you'll have to do that quietly if you're in the class, but it's better to read it out loud, because then your brain really is paying attention to what you've written. And at this point, you're checking that what you have written sounds right and makes sense. And then at this point, you might also come in and check the spelling, or do a little bit of tweaking with the spelling as well. Tip number 4 is giving it to someone else to read for their feedback. It might be your teacher or might be a friend, and they'll read it and they'll probably tell you what they think, and they might give you some ideas, and your teacher may at this point help you with the spelling. And it's important to listen to those ideas, and this is the hardest part of writing, is you have to come back to your story and maybe redo parts of it, but that's what good writers do. So you just have to do it because you want your story to be as good as it can be. But you are the author, so you actually don't have to do everything they suggest. You can still make your own decisions and think, yeah, that bit's good that they've said, oh, but maybe I won't use that bit. Tip number 5 is about the presentation. So let's think about how you're going to present it. This is when I might have it typed out, or you might write it in your best handwriting, obviously getting someone to check that the spelling is okay, because you want your finished product to be spelt correctly. You might do your pictures. So you can see I do my pictures by hand. As I'm writing the story, I'm drawing pictures of what I would like to go with it. But because I have my books published commercially, I have an illustrator do pictures, so she looks at those, she draws the illustrations, and then that's when you're checking that your illustrations match your text. You want everything to match up, and you might need more than one illustration. You can see in my books, I have lots of illustrations. And then I put it together. This is one of my finished books, but with you, you might have it all on one page, or you might have a little book that you've stapled. Make sure you've got a cover, if that's the case, with the title at the top and your names. Always put the title and your name on any piece of writing. And now it's ready for others to enjoy. And I think that's the best bit of writing, is that you've produced this for others, and others can read your story. So those are some of my tips for being a writer. I hope you found them useful. Happy writing, everyone.